Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. For President Rodrigo Duterte, it's time to adopt an independent foreign policy. On his pivotal trip to Beijing, Mr. Duterte declares a separation from the United States, both in the military and economic aspects, and expanding ties with other countries. Washington has its comment on the issue.
So it's a mistake to think that improved relations between Manila and Beijing somehow come at the expense of the United States. That's not the way that we think about it. This should be addition and not subtraction. We don't want countries to have to choose between the US and China, but we do want countries to be able to choose, to have choices, to have autonomy, to make their own decisions in keeping with their own democratic values and in keeping with international law.
Even ordinary Filipinos working in U.S. companies express concern on this major policy shift.
Siya may desisyon yan. Presidente siya eh. Alam niya kung ano yung gagawin niya.
Ay, naku, malaking impact sa amin yan, mga taga-call center. Baka magkaroon kami ng... Siyempre, baka mawala yung BPO sa Philippines, di ba? So, wala na kaming wala nang trabaho.
Siguro, at first, mag-a-adjust yung mga Pilipino kasi different ang United States saka China. Pero sana, hopefully, maging maganda yung team up ng China.
In a briefing upon arriving from his Beijing state visit, President Duterte clarified he is not severing ties with the U.S. when he spoke of a separation from the superpower. So, where do we go from here? What does it mean to have an independent foreign policy, and how will we pursue it? Let's go straight to the source of the story. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure and my privilege.
Were you getting a lot of calls after the first statement of the president in China?
A number of queries, a number of queries.
How is it to answer it now after the president's first statement on the separation, both military and economics, and then eventually saying that it's not really a separation but a severance of ties? How would you explain that to us now?
Well, basically, it sounds complex, but it actually is not that difficult. Because as he has said, he has said again and again, listen to what I've said. In other words, he has a history. He's very consistent in his messaging. So basically, this particular statement about about separation, I was there on the second row. I was listening to him, and he did say, though, he said we're separating separation militarily, not socially, and economically, or it was...
And not social, and in economics as well.
Yes, in economics as well. So basically, although at first it sounded complex, but then again, as we talked about it, as we went through it, it just became very clear that it was a basic restatement of his original position of following an independent foreign policy, that we were separating ourselves from dependency on other powers for aid, but finding our own way and finding our own track, finding our own particular direction as a nation.
But do you feel that the president should have been more specific about it?
Well, there are many wishes, I suppose. But be that as it may, he seems to be pretty consistent in his general concepts, general directions.
Okay,
yes.
There is another part where the president said that it's the Philippines, China, and Russia, all three of us against the world.
Right.
Okay, we're going to listen to that statement of the president.
America has lost me. And will I realign myself in your ideological flow, and maybe I will also go to Russia to talk to Putin and tell him that there are three of us against the world: China, Philippines, and Russia.
Secretary, can you respond to that? Can you react to that statement of the president?
Well, in general, he was saying he was saying that he was aligning himself ideologically to the flow of Russia, of China and Russia. But basically, I would say that it still is part of his consistent message that we are, in a sense, not just being ourselves exclusive, but opening ourselves up to other parties. But again, maintaining our own particular direction and independence.
I'm going to have to ask you
Yes.
point blank. Sometimes is it difficult to clarify the statements of the president?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because I got called out, a number of people saying, "Hey, I said, use your creative imagination."
I know you said that. That's quite hard because that's open to more interpretation.
I understand, but basically, it's just learning to connect the dots.
Okay.
Connect the dots, and his dots are pretty clear. His dots are pretty clear. So. It's basically, yes, it may sound difficult at first, but then you let it just, you let it settle a bit, and then you understand. Look back at the history of his statements, and it's pretty clear.
And is that how you form your reactions to the media when you are asked? You look at the past, how the president spoke, and how he thinks, and then you make your conclusion from there on?
Yes, but on the other hand, these are not unfounded conclusions. I also bounce it off the pertinent cabinet secretary. I talk with a number of them, and we come to a consensus. But more or less, when he himself is asked, we're pretty much in the same sphere.
When the president made that statement, the first statement, Secretary, there were, members, for example, of the BPO industry who were
Yes.
possibly restless or had some anxiety or were in shock even
Right.
because of what the president said.
Right.
How would you in any way appease them or let them know or understand what the president exactly meant?
Simply that we're following a course of independent foreign policy. On the other hand, we understand our economic, for example, the people have invested here economically and business-wise. These are not going to be harmed. These are not going to be disturbed. This continues.
So, no problem. I mean,
No problem.
wag silang matakot.
Huwag sila mataranta.
Kasi hindi sila, that's not in peril.
That's not in peril.
Okay, Secretary Yasay also had described it as freeing us from the grip of the Americans, from the tight grip, rather, of the Americans. Would you agree?
Which one?
With that statement of DFA Secretary Yasay, that it's really, because when he was asked about the president's statement also, he said that this was really just a way of freeing us from the tight grip of the Americans.
This is Secretary Yasay's way of restating President Duterte's direction.
Okay, the South China Sea
Yes.
dispute. The president said that he didn't really discuss it. It wasn't really the time to do it. It was time to befriend China first.
Yes.
But then when he came back, he also said that there was some sort of talk about it and that he's just going to wait for his Chinese counterparts because our fishermen might be able to fish in Scarborough Shoal. Sir, can you clarify this for us?
During the public meetings, and we were there in the bilateral talks about 1 or 2 times, I think, and they did say that there was a time in the season to talk about these things. But apparently, according to the president's statement, later statement, I think, in Tuguegarao and Isabela, he did say that they had a little private time.
Right.
And so, going by that, apparently they came to some sort of an agreement. Based on that, they came to some sort of an agreement that the fishermen just give a little time, may be able to do that again. May be able to fish. Yes.
Secretary, even when the president was in China, there was already talk about that there was a possibility that the
Yes.
Filipino fishermen may be able to fish again in
Yes.
Scarborough Shoal. And even when the president, I remember, arrived in Davao City Saturday evening,
Dawn,
early
yeah.
Sunday
Around
morning.
midnight, yeah.
Yeah. He also said that a reporter asked him, and he said that napag-usapan namin ng konti, but he was almost like deferring
Yes.
to the Chinese government to possibly make an announcement. So is that something we should wait for?
Going by his statements, yes. That's something we can look forward to positively.
Yeah, but if that happens, Secretary, that will be obviously very good news for our
Oh, yes,
Filipino
definitely.
fishermen. fishermen. What else, in terms of trade and investment, what can we look forward to? I know, of course, billions of pesos was promised.
Yes, but what's exciting for me, especially since I come from the South, is the fact that apparently the fruits are going to be allowed to go in again, the tropical fruits, the bananas, pineapples, and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty exciting. So it should be in the words of the president, it's a springtime in our relationship with, of course, with the nation, with China. But then, it wasn't featured, but the premier also said, let us wait for the summer and the autumn when everything will come to fruit. And so that's, it's all very, how do you put it, very poetic ways of saying, hey, we're going to progress.
Well, let me just go to another issue that the president raised, the treaties. The treaties we have with the United States. What is really the talk on this, Secretary Abella? Is it up for abrogation? Is the president wanting to continue the Mutual Defense Treaty and the EDCA or not?
Well, let's put it this way. We'll finish off what needs to be finished off at this stage. Like, for example, there are no more exercises for this particular year. So that's a clear statement. On the other hand, the treaties will, whatever treaties that we have, will have to run its cycle of completion.
What do you mean by a cycle of completion?
In other words, as far as we know, they're not cutting off anything. We're honoring whatever has been laid out.
In simple terms, the Mutual Defense Treaty lives on, and the EDCA will likewise continue. All right, bilateral talks with China, Secretary, do you have any idea when this will begin?
With China? I think it all depends on the schedules of the DFA and the other departments.
Secretary, let's look at some of the policies of the Duterte administration. Number one, the war on drugs. How is this coming along, sir?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's frame it in a two-phase thing. The first phase, of course, was to create an awareness, raise the consciousness of the people regarding the depth and the breadth of the way drugs has actually infiltrated the whole nation, including about 97% of all barangays. And having said that, having created enough attention, enough awareness about it, we're now entering into the second phase of the drug situation. And it's now shifted from a national security issue more into a public health issue. And this is where the president has shown deep admiration for the support of other countries, like, for example, other nations like China, who have, well, in his words, instead of criticizing, they really offered rehabilitation. And part of part of the bacon brought home is that some technologies are being offered regarding drug control, drug management, and also rehabilitation programs.
But isn't it quite strange? It is quite strange for some, Secretary, that we have China helping us out here, for example, with the rehabilitation centers, and yet most of the syndicates or the pushers that have been caught are from China.
Well, though, I suppose the source apparently comes from China, but then, of course, we understand it's not a government-run thing. These are people, individuals, criminals. The drug laws in China are pretty harsh. So, but apparently, China has found itself in a position where they can help. And apparently, this is part of what the president has said again and again, which he appreciates. And the Asian thing, there's mutual support, mutual cooperation, mutual respect. And, well, it's something that's being exercised at this stage.
And that is probably why the president is also pushing for the death penalty as well.
This has been something that, well, like he said, there's being a lawyer, he has referred to it again and again, that there's such a thing as law and there's such a thing as order. He says law is for making sure that you go by the law, you live by the law. But if you go against it, then there must be retribution, or some form of restitution. And so that's why he says that there is a death penalty. He has always thought about it in those terms.
But the war on drugs continues in the same manner, strength, and, well, conviction.
Well, conviction, yes, apparently. And also, again and again, there's a reiteration that, and the president keeps going back to this. He says, it is just a question of killing people. These situations are, he keeps referring to the fact that the whole concept of EJK is a misunderstanding of what he really intends. That basically there is you go after the criminals, and then make sure that they surrender properly. However, if there is resistance and your life is in danger, then then
Protect yourself.
Protect yourself,
Yeah,
yes.
he's often said
Again
that
and again said
over
that.
and over. He
Yes.
makes a statement, pero yun normally yung kadugtong nun. That
Yes,
if your
right.
life is in danger,
Right.
parang kailangan kang lumaban.
Correct.
But in the same token, sir, that we're talking about alleged extrajudicial killings, of course, the United States has been critical of that, looking into the possible human rights violations. There is a U.S. senior official who is in town and wants some sort of clarification from the statements made by the president. I believe this would go through Secretary Yasay, though.
Yes, yes.
But how would you explain, for example, a U.S. senior official coming over and wanting an explanation? Although from what I heard, this has been planned way back.
Assuming that it has been planned way back. I believe in the beginning, especially the media featured some of the State Department officials saying that they were baffled about the statement and stuff like that. But again, even during that particular time when he said it, he did say a separation militarily, but not socially and then economically. So even then, there already was a space. There was already a space where he was making allowances for not a total separation. In other words, to set the senior officials' mind at rest. And for everybody else, business people who are thinking about this. Basically, it is just a restatement. It is an important restatement, but a restatement of the fact that he intends, as a leader, to make sure that the Philippines follows an independent foreign policy.
Okay, we've talked about that independent foreign policy. Secretary, a lot of people really saying it's being, having a policy with the United States, with China.
It's an expansion.
And, yeah, expansion, exactly, sir, and possibly with Russia. Is there an upcoming visit to Russia that you know of?
As far as I know, none. As far as I know. But it's something that it has been mentioned, the President did mention, but basically there's nothing official at this stage.
Let's talk about the upcoming trip to Japan.
Yes.
Well, the President is set to leave for Japan. What can we expect from that trip, sir?
Well, first it's going to be a celebration of the 60th anniversary of our diplomatic relations with Japan. And also, it's interesting because Japan has always been the top donor, and also a top trading partner. So we've always had, not a COSIP, it's always been a very beneficial relationship with Japan. And again, if I may put it, the Japanese, even the Prime Minister, has said that they're pretty excited. The people are pretty excited. In the same way that the Chinese people seem to. In fact, if I may just gloss on it just a little bit. When we were in China, somebody did mention to me that this is the first time that the atmosphere has been so electric with the visit of a particular leader. And apparently there's the same effect in Japan, that they're pretty much excited in meeting up with this
This leader.
Well,
we can only, I can just really base it from my readings because
Yes,
obviously I was not in China. But yeah, they rolled out the red carpet for President Rodrigo Duterte.
And a marching band.
And a marching band, and with the kids, with the flags. Yeah, it was an all-out welcome for our president. So you're saying that in a way, that's the kind of reception the president might be also be welcomed with in Japan?
I'm not entirely sure. I cannot speak for the Japanese, but coming from where they are, they seem to be pretty warm, pretty warm.
But in terms of investment opportunities, trade, and the like, sir, what can we look forward to?
There was mention. I'm not entirely sure about the. There was mention of aid coming. I think aid or grants or something like that. But again, the president usually wants to term it soft loans.
Yeah.
Stressing and underlining the fact that we're not out to beg, which is exactly what he's saying, which is to break the mendicant mindset.
And because you used the word beg, Secretary Abella, in terms of foreign aid, for example, coming from the United States, I remember the president saying that he doesn't have to beg, in terms of having to get foreign aid. But what about foreign aid, let's say, again, coming from the United States? Is that something we still need? Is it welcome?
Well, I don't know if it's something that we still need and still welcome in the sense of wanting to go out and seek for it, but I suppose when, you don't turn your back on. This is my opinion, and I'm not really, this is not my role to be giving an opinion. But I suppose when aid comes in, and it's something to be welcomed.
So let me rephrase that. Do you think that the president will still accept foreign aid coming from the United States?
I cannot speak for him in that sense of policy, but I suppose if it's coming in as part of some things that have been agreed upon, why not? Yes.
Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella, sir, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.